Hi, I'm Euan.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is
Popcorn and Cumin, a transatlantic dive into film and media.
With a healthy side of unrelated nonsense. Hello and welcome to this week's Popcorn and Cumin. Today we're back after not really a hiatus, and we're doing Wicked.
Woo!
Part 1. Aww. Falsely advertised as a whole movie.
Was it?
Well, in the promotional materials, I didn't really see anything that said Wicked Part 1. I think a lot of people would have got a big shock when... Because even I think on the slate at the start, you know, when it comes up with like the rating,
Oh, yeah.
like if it's PG or 12 or whatever, yeah. I feel like that just said Wicked. And then actually in the movie, there's another title card. And then it says Wicked, and then Part 1 in small letters put next to it. And I reckon a lot of people at that point threw their popcorn in the air, walked out and demanded a refund.
Got hooked in. I mean, to be fair, it does, I feel like Defying Gravity, like you could see that and think, oh, that's the end. She's learned to become empowered. That's that.
Yeah. Well, all the sad stuff happens in the next part. So
yeah, well, I can't even remember what happens in the second half.
Do you want me to?
I love this show.
Is that what our episode should be? I give the spoilers for Wicked Part 2.
No.
From what I remember, vaguely.
Well, I feel like Part 2 is mostly just...
death and destruction.
The Wizard of Oz.
What?
The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, right, yeah.
But from...
I thought you meant the character. It just follows him around. No.
Like the plot of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway...
in reverse.
Before we get into the best musical ever, we first have to do our cross-border factoids.
Wow. I was just about to say this is the segment within a segment where Sarah tries to remember what it's called, but she's done it first time. That's not even post editing magic.
Well, I don't think it's the best name.
Yeah.
But we can't think of anything better.
On the fly, and no one ever bothered to put the work in to come up with something better.
Yeah.
Listeners can write in and let us know what we should call it.
Yeah.
And don't say anything weird.
Like what?
I don't know. It's something gross or something...
Is that the kind of people you think listen to us?
Yeah, almost exclusively, I think.
Okay, anyway, US-UK differences. For our new listeners, I am from California, and Euan,
if you couldn't tell,
is from the great land of Scotland.
Land of the free, home of the brave.
Yes, there's a similarity between our countries. Today, I think I'm just going to do a difference because I've got a whole backed up list of differences and Euan has been slacking and doesn't have anything to bring to the table.
I bring other things to the table.
It's true.
I just made dinner tonight.
Your good looks and charm.
Yeah, not that the listeners could see.
And curry.
I curry favor with you.
Very good joke. So my difference is related to Wicked, the theme of our episode. And it is about the land of Broadway versus the land of the West End. Now, there's a lot of differences between these two lands, but...
What are these two lands?
Broadway is in New York City, and that is the land of musical theater. Mm-hmm. There is a street called Broadway, but all of the shows aren't necessarily on that street anymore.
Yeah, it's grown arms and legs and...
It's grown.
Shut up.
Arms and legs. And then the West End is the theater. West
End in Glasgow.
Yeah, well, see, it is a little bit confusing, actually, because a lot of British cities have the West End part of town, but that literally just means, like, the west part of town. And it's often, like, the posher part of town. But
that's Westies.
Is that a reference to Only Murders in the Building?
No.
Oh.
Totally could be.
Isn't that what they call the ones in the west side of the building? Anyway, in London, the West End refers to the theater district, as does Broadway in New York City. So that's where all of the big productions happen, including Wicked. Wicked is in both the West End and in Broadway. And on Broadway in New York City, and has been running in both locations for a very long time. I don't know exactly how long.
Over 20 years now.
There you go. That's what Euan thinks, so must be right.
That's verifiable.
So anyway, my difference is that in the UK theater, musical theater, costs far less to attend than in New York City. So the West End is more affordable than Broadway. And I used Wicked as an example to prove this point. So I took a Wicked showing on a random day in January on a Friday. So probably like a decently big day for theater. Probably a bit more expensive for both productions. And in the US, the cheapest seats were $116 and the most expensive seats were $272. Now, it's possible that like some of the really cheap seats have already sold, but I'm pretty sure that is around what the pricing would be. In the West End, the same show on the same day for Wicked, the cheapest seats are, I'm going to do this comparison first in dollars. So it was $116 on Broadway, and in the West End, the cheapest ones were $38. And the most expensive ones on Broadway were $273, but in the West End, they are $215. So the highest price, I guess, isn't like that difference, but I think it's just much harder to get tickets like under $100 in the US, which I think for a lot of people is just not affordable.
Yeah. And that's a problem because it creates issues with theater becoming exclusive and like younger people who are interested in it can't afford to go and things of that nature.
I saw this was a long time ago, but I saw a kind of meme thing that was saying, what was it? It was like, film is rich people creating something for poor people, and theater is poor people creating something for rich people.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like because we live in London and have done for over 2 years now, and we've gone to the theater a lot, but it's only very rarely we've like had to splash out on expensive tickets, and normally that's been to signify like a birthday or something when we've done that, whereas most of the time we just get day off tickets and they're normally pretty good.
Yeah.
Whereas I know that day off thing still exists in Broadway, but when we were in New York, it certainly wasn't as inexpensive as it can be in London. And then even in London, you've got stuff like the Globe, the Shakespeare's Globe, where you can see like Shakespeare perform for like £5.
Yeah. With the caveat of having to stand for 3+ hours.
That's how it would have been. It's the only thatched roof in all of London as well. It's an authentic experience.
No, that is a very good experience. Would recommend. But yeah, if you want to see good quality, less expensive shows, the West End is the land for you.
Yeah. And my difference going back on that, and is not totally just pinched from a popular podcast known as The Rest is Entertainment, of which I've listened to only one episode of, is that sort of similar to what Sarah is saying, how tickets on Broadway are more expensive. Apparently there's a lot more money to be made on Broadway if your show is a big hit, but because of the fees involved in terms of getting the theater time and everything, I think it's a kind of more high risk, high reward situation. So I think a lot of the times now theater companies are kind of starting things in the West End to try and gain an audience and generate hype and maybe kind of work out some of the kinks of their show if some things don't necessarily work or they feel like they're not working, and then they transfer over to Broadway. So the Stranger Things thing, which is a prequel to the TV series, has been running in London, I think, for over a year, but it's going to close in some point in the near future, I'm not sure how near it is, and that's transferring to Broadway. There's something called Sunset Boulevard that opened here, transferred to Broadway. Obviously things come the other way, I'm not really sure if things do come the other way. I don't think the whole... Well, things come from Broadway to the West End, but what I mean is I don't think they just pack up the production in New York and then be like, all right, we're going to London, which is what's happening the other way around.
Is it though? Because a lot of stuff has just opened in both. Six started in the West End, now is also on Broadway. Mm-hmm. Cabaret started in the West End, is now also on Broadway. The cast didn't move over. Although Eddie Redmayne did, but I don't think the full cast moved over.
Well, Stranger Things is closing and moving. Sunset Boulevard closed and moved. Maybe I've even read that Next to Normal's closing and moving.
Well, Next to Normal has been around a long time.
No, I don't think it's currently playing on Broadway.
Yeah, but it didn't start in the West End.
No, I know, but it revived it in the West End.
Is it a revival?
Yeah, well, I think anything when it stops and then it comes back is a revival.
But I think there's...
Do you mean where it's like they've changed it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Who cares? The other thing I was going to say is that I believe post-COVID, theatre has bounced back in London to a much greater extent than it has on Broadway, in terms of, I think that there's a lot more empty seats on Broadway at an average show. I'm sure, things that are selling out every night, there's still some instances of that. Like, for instance, I'm sure Hamilton post-COVID, after they put the thing on Disney Plus, became even more popular for a while. I don't know if that's maybe semi-fizzled out to some extent. Whereas, I don't think it's the same thing in London. I think generally things are succeeding. Nothing's bombing, like Splash, the musical.
Is that a real musical, or is that from Only Murders in the Building?
I think it's a real film, but I don't know if the musical was a real one.
So there you go. But I would say, so West End is a great, wonderful place.
Here she goes. She's going to say that Broadway has higher quality.
Well, I mean, we only saw 2 shows there. But I was blown away by both of them, which I feel like I haven't felt in the West End in a while.
What about Next to Normal? You're blown away by that.
That was very good. But there's always one actor that I'm like, why did you cast this person who's not good at singing?
I don't think everyone in Suffs was like amazing at singing.
Yeah, but I guess it's like the production quality just seemed... It felt more...
This stage is made out of higher grade wood.
No, not even that. Like, it might have honestly been more the ensemble. The ensembles felt more, like, powerful. It could be because the stages are bigger, so they can literally fit more people on them. In general, because London's theaters are quite old, so they're a bit more compact, I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Are you done talking about the West End and Broadway?
I've got nothing more to say.
All right, we're going to move on, because we are here to talk about the best movie ever, maybe.
Movie of the decade. That's what I'm seeing in the advertising. That's what people are calling it.
Really?
I'm not sure who's called it that, but that's the quote they're using.
I mean, it is crazy how much hype it has gotten. Like, obviously, I have always loved Wicked, but I feel like all these people are kind of coming out of the woodwork. And I'm like, but were you a Wicked fan?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it seems strange how it's taken them so long to make this, when I feel like the film itself hasn't actually had to do that much to like generate hype. Like, they are pushing it a lot, but it's almost, it kind of like self-sustaining. Okay,
but I would like to start out by explaining our backgrounds with Wicked to the listeners. So, Euan, have you seen Wicked on stage? Did you see it before the movie? What were your feelings on Wicked before this whole shebang?
Yeah, I've actually seen Wicked on stage 3 times. And I think before you. So the first time I saw it on stage was in 2012.
That wasn't before me.
Well, where did you see it?
Well, I don't know exactly what year it was. But all right, I'm switching to my background on Wicked. All right, people? I started listening to this when I was in elementary school. Early elementary school, I would say. Like 3rd or 4th grade. So I would have been, 8 maybe? 8 when I started listening to it. So Wicked came out in 2003, and it was when the hype was still kind of happening. So I must have listened to it around 2003, 2005 would have been my first time when I started becoming slightly obsessed with it, because my mom and her musical theater friend introduced me to it. And this is what got me into musical theater in the first place, which is why it holds such a special place in my heart. I did not actually see Wicked for a few years after that, but I'm pretty sure I saw it before 2012. And when I was in 5th and 6th grade, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, 3 years in a row, I painted myself green, and my neighbor and I sang songs from Wicked for the talent show. So I was always Elphaba, she was always Galinda. And the first one we did was Loathing. The second one we did was Popular, but we made it into a duet. It wasn't just her singing.
You're claiming you're such a big Wicked fan, but I don't think there's a song called Loathing.
What is this feeling? But when I was a kid, we would always call it Loathing, okay? And then after that, we were kind of like, what song could we duet together? Which the obvious answer would have been...
Something Bad.
No. Oh, no.
Dancing Through Life.
No, they're at in the second act. We already did Popular.
For Good.
Yes, For Good. Because everyone and their mom
Spoilers.
duets For
Spoilers
Good.
For Wicked Part 2.
But for some reason, we decided instead to do Emerald City. And then my sister joined us as the chorus of Oz citizens. Just my sister was that group of people who did the
multiple takes. She was
who's the mage.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'd like to see
and
that.
I think she also, unless I'm mixing this up, she also featured in Popular as the ensemble for the like, Dear Galinda. Oh, I can't sing. Dear Galinda, you are just too good. Do.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a claim to fame.
Yeah. So 3 years of painting myself green before I had even seen Wicked. I feel like,
wow.
Yeah, big fan.
How much of yourself did you paint green?
My face and my neck.
Not your hands?
And my hands.
Okay.
I think.
Both sides?
I don't remember.
Okay. Now, Sarah, did you face any discrimination for being painted green?
No.
Because that is one of the controversies that I've seen from this movie, that one of the, I guess, trigger warnings you'd call them, although they've existed before. I think that was a phrase that was well known, is at the start of the movie on that, the ratings card, it says, warning, this movie has displays of discrimination. And people, I don't want to sort of name any names, but the sort of usual suspects are saying that that's stupid because there aren't any green people that are discriminated against, and it's fiction. And I want to say, use your critical thinking, please. Obviously, the experience that Elphaba has in her life is a form of discrimination based on the way she looks.
Yeah.
And obviously that would fit being discriminated, or a tag of discrimination.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a trigger warning for anything, I think that's okay.
I agree. Also, trigger warning for talking animals, which some people find disturbing.
Yeah. Now I see some things on Netflix where it's trigger warning smoking, which I find a little bit ridiculous. I wonder, was there a trigger warning for smoking before Joker 2?
Oh God,
because
we probably needed about
I'm
a
sure
million trigger warnings for smoking. That definitely made me want to smoke. See, God, what an awful movie. Going from Joker 2 to this is just...
Yeah, well, 2 musicals in a row in Popcorn and Cumin, so we're going to have a long musical break.
The very bottom to the very top.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. It certainly is one of the best musical adaptations that I've seen.
Yeah, I think so as well. I was trying to think of other ones that are equally as good.
Mm-hmm. Chicago is pretty good, although I think actually some musical fans find that a little bit controversial, but I haven't seen the stage version to really know. In the Heights was good, although I haven't seen the stage version.
Same director?
Either. Yeah.
As Wicked, not Chicago.
Yeah. Beyond that, you're struggling.
Yeah. I mean, The Wizard of Oz.
I don't think that was a stage thing to be adapted, was it? It was a book.
But it is a staged musical. But I think it was probably a movie. It was a movie first.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Book, movie, musical.
Mm-hmm. But I was meaning a stage musical into a movie. What's the best adaptation?
True. That's true. You don't get many straight movie musicals nowadays.
No, well, you can't advertise them as such, otherwise people won't go see it.
Yeah, because people are idiots. I hope all you non-musical people, you musical haters who walked out of Mean Girls when you found out it was a musical and all that, I hope that you have been captured by the... I hope
you're happy.
I hope you're happy now.
Nice.
I hope you've been captured by the wave of Wicked, and I hope that you feel shame.
I hope you've painted yourself green and are listening to this while your tears are washing your green paint away.
Exactly.
Loser. Just on my history of Wicked, because I was cut off before when Sarah decided her story was more important than mine.
Well, you said you said a lie. You said you had seen it before me, which is not true.
So I saw it for the first time in 2012 on the West End, and then I saw it again, I think a touring company in Edinburgh. I don't know when that was, a while ago. And then I saw it again with Sarah, I think in last year or the year before, maybe. I think probably 2023. And yeah, I've always very much liked it. I've liked not just the songs. I feel like Sarah is very sort of biased towards the songs over the plot. I've always liked the kind of weird plot with the animals getting, rounded up and sent away, kind of like in Shrek a little bit. Also featuring a green character.
The same movie, basically.
Yeah. Shrek also discriminated against for being green.
Yeah. I've seen videos of Shrek flying around in Shrek 3 or 4 to the tune of Defying Gravity.
Oh, yeah.
So, proof that they're the same.
I can't remember. I was trying to think of what Shrek is in, but yeah.
Shrek Forever After, maybe. It is true that I like the songs maybe over the plot because I listened to the soundtrack and, did these silly little talent shows. But for years...
Don't slag them off.
For years before I actually even saw the musical. So anything that's not in the songs, I completely forget, what happens in the musical. Which is one of the reasons why I don't really know what happens in part 2. because I feel like there's fewer songs in part 2 and there's more dialogue.
Well, one of the big songs is actually cut from the soundtrack. I think that used to be a thing that Broadway soundtracks did.
Is it Nessa Rose's song?
Yeah, I was about to say what it was called, but that's a spoiler. Yeah, it's Nessa Rose's song.
Are we doing spoilers?
Well, maybe not for the next movie. We can do spoilers for this movie.
Well, I didn't know if we would do spoilers, and I also don't know what is a spoiler because I feel like I know it too well.
Yeah.
Like, what do people not know? What do people know? I don't know.
Well, people might not even know it's a musical.
Well, they should now. So yeah, that song was cut from the musical soundtrack. But I've also heard that for the next movie, they're going to add 2 new songs.
Yeah. Probably just so we could submit it for Best Original Song at the Oscars.
Yes. Which in this one, the only new song, kind of, is in the middle of Emerald's, of One Short Day.
It's like you don't know the song title.
It's because this is what we would colloquially... Colloquial... What am I doing?
Colloquially.
See, you said it weird too. Colloquially? Colloquially.
This is not good.
It's how we would say it.
Yeah. Colloquially.
Colloquially. All right, we're moving past that. In the middle of One Short Day, during the Wizomaniac portion of it, they add...
Oh yeah, there's two folk that turn up. There's some significance to the Wicked lore.
Indeed. And there's a little bit of kind of a new song. But because it's part of the bigger song, like, does that count as a new original song that they can submit for the Oscars?
Yeah, I would think probably not. I was actually surprised. I was expecting there to be one of the original songs in this part, and there wasn't. So, because I just assumed they would split them up. If they had, for instance, 2 new ones, they'd put one in part 1 and one in part 2 so they can do 2 submissions.
Yeah. But I mean, part 2 was already 2.5 hours long. Like, there's not so much. What is it?
I think it's 2 hours 40.
All right. Well, that's not that much long.
It is. I mean, it's
better than
snowballing.
It's better than the bloody like Batman or Dune. It's not that bad.
I feel like Dune tells a much longer and more complex story in a.
No, but it doesn't have songs. It doesn't have to include songs in it.
It doesn't have songs that we can drag out over 10 minutes.
Yeah, all right. Okay, now I'm getting to my notes. So the Wicked stage production that the movie is based on a book by Gregory
Maguire.
Yes,
Related
Gregory
to
Maguire.
Harry Maguire?
I would say no.
Tobey Maguire?
Maybe.
Lizzie Maguire?
Maybe. Bit more talent there than with Harry Maguire. So he wrote this book called Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the
West.
Good job.
Good save.
Good trivia. So he wrote that book, and it actually is a series. So Wicked, the musical, is just based off of the first book. But then there's a second book that is called Son of a Witch, which is about Elphaba's...
Smart, Gregory. How'd you come up with that?
It's about Elphaba's son, who is trying to find his half-sister, which then begs the question, if Elphaba's son has a half-sister, does Fiyero father children with both of them?
I wonder.
That made me interested. And then the third book is called A Lion Among Men, is about the cowardly lion. And then the fourth one is about Elphaba's son's daughter, so Elphaba's granddaughter. So those are the books that the show is based on.
And if you really like the movie or the stage show or both, and you think, I really want to go out and read the book, prepare to be surprised that they're quite different. I believe the book is much more violent, is much more obviously a political sort of satire, and you'd probably be disappointed, I think.
Oh no. I'm really interested in reading the book. My mom actually bought the book, and when I was, again, a very small child.
This isn't Harry Potter.
Yeah, I started reading it, and I was like, what the heck is happening? Because I was like 8 years old, and so then I stopped reading it. But I would like to read it again now. I think it would be interesting to see what it's like. The only difference that I came across when looking at these books in compared to the show is in the stage production and in the movie, the Grimoire, which was the spell book that Elphaba has to read to do spells. In the movie, the spell book is written in the lost language of spells, which is why the people of Oz can't read it, but Elphaba, because she's magical, can. Whereas in the book, the people of Oz can't read the Grimoire because it's from Earth and it's in English, which really
that's kind of stupid,
confused me, because then I was like, where is Oz, another planet?
Or maybe another like land. There's a space between spaces.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird.
With that. But then that would imply that it's a spell book that comes from Earth. Like what? So is there magic on Earth in the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, well, I guess, because the wizard is from Earth.
But he doesn't have any magic, and he can't read it.
Well, exactly. This is why I'm confused.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe he can in the book? Because Elphaba's his spawn. Do we know that?
What a thing to say. No.
Do we know it in the second part, or is it just something people infer? Because I
think you know it.
Oh. Is that a spoiler?
Probably, yeah.
All right, we'll cut that out. Fine. All right, non-spoilers. Let's talk about the cast.
Yeah? Where should we start? With Elfie?
Elfie.
Cynthia Erivo.
She's the one. What did you think of her?
I liked her. She was good. Although, she did kind of distract me a lot of the times because I'm quite familiar with the Wicked soundtrack. And one of the things when the casting came out, we were a little bit skeptical, me and Sarah, of Ariana Grande, because Sarah can speak more to this, but she likes her as a singer, but too much riffing. No one wants to hear that riffing.
Yeah.
And actually, I thought her performance on songs was a little bit less distracting than Cynthia Erivo's. And I'm not saying that's in a bad way. It wasn't distracting, I was like, because this is bad. It was because she did obvious, and I wouldn't say major changes, but sort of distinct changes with the way she sang specific vocal lines that kind of like made it her own in a way. So I can totally see why she would do that. But yeah, I was kind of expecting a bit more of that to come from the Glinda character in this case, just based on what I knew about the actors going into it. But
yeah,
so that was interesting. I had seen some people saying that like you would be able to speak more to this than me. Her vocal range and her type of singer that she isn't actually that suited, or not suited, but she wouldn't typically maybe be the person who would be cast as Elphaba. But I didn't get that sense really at all.
Yeah, well, I'm not too familiar with her previous work. I've heard her sing a song from The Color Purple that she does sound like amazing on. I thought that she was really good in Wicked vocally in like specific parts. Like I think when she is really belting high notes, she sounds really good. But in parts that are like maybe a little more boring, or less like the moments that aren't as big, like most of The Wizard and I.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Idina Menzel, like she still kind of belts the whole thing. Which I love Idina Menzel's voice. She doesn't sing in a very healthy way, which is one of the reasons. I mean, she's also just getting older, but it's one of the reasons why Kristen Chenoweth.
Who?
Kristen Chenoweth. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Now I'm second guessing myself. Why she still has a voice, whereas Idina Menzel has a less healthy voice now.
She mute?
No, but her voice cracks a lot. But Idina like belts the whole song, and it still grows and changes, but it still sounds like really powerful throughout. Whereas I thought when Cynthia wasn't doing like basically just the end of The Wizard and I, she sounded kind of, I don't know, her voice sounded almost like not super mature and like it was lacking depth and maybe a little bit over edited.
But yeah, that's kind of the difficulty. I mean, I suppose you're basing most of that on Idina Menzel's like studio recording.
Well, exactly.
But yeah.
Well, I've heard her sing it live as well.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it is hard to not compare.
Yeah, no,
it to the original.
I thought on a couple of the songs, like for instance, The Wizard and I, some of the bits that are a bit more like, not the big belly bits, like sometimes her vocals I thought were maybe a little bit lacking in like personality and kind of warmth. It just kind of was like meandering along to the next kind of singing bit, you know?
Yeah.
But that's maybe like extremely harsh.
Which is interesting because we'll get to this in a little bit, but one of the whole reasons the director wanted the vocals to be recorded live was so we had like emotion and depth that would usually be taken away in post-production a little bit. Like they noticed on the because I think they might have done some of the studio recordings before doing the live ones or something, but they noticed that it like took away some of that depth. So it's interesting that it sounds like they did like I don't think that his vision maybe necessarily came through, at least on that song. On other songs, yes, but maybe not on The Wizard and I.
No. So are you saying Wizard and I bad?
No, there were parts of it that I really liked the ending.
Hello, we are now back. We have had some technical difficulties back at Popcorn and Cumin HQ in the recording studio. So we're now recording this part and hopefully the rest of the podcast a day later than what you just heard. So for any breaks in continuity, it's not our fault. And you're probably just as confused as we are, maybe less so. So we'll now continue with our discussion of Wicked Part 1.
Well, we had near disaster after the computer crashed, for context of why we had to record the next day. But now here we are, and for now the computer is okay. So hopefully it stays that way. Send your thoughts to our laptop.
Yeah, keep your fingers and toes crossed while you're listening, for our sake.
Jumping right back into Wicked, we talked a bit about Cynthia. Do we want to talk about Ariana Grande's performance as Glinda?
Yeah, well, I think we were sort of slagging Cynthia off a little bit. But generally speaking, I think we were positive on her performance. We were just giving our sort of minor feedbacks. But we liked her overall, right?
Yeah. How do you feel about her new riff in Defying Gravity?
I didn't like it that much.
The talk of the town.
I didn't like it.
I did.
It's okay.
It's good.
I'd rather they just kept the original one. Because it's not like she was doing different vocal lines throughout. So I feel like they could have left that one be the kind of iconic one just for continuity's sake while letting her change the other stuff. You don't need to change everything, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Which is Ariana Grande's thinking. You don't have to change anything. Wicked was perfect the way it was.
Yeah.
And she was right.
Yeah, it sounds like behind the scenes from interviews with the cast that I've seen, she really fought for keeping things as close to the stage show as possible wherever she could, and would actually shoot down suggestions to change things. Particularly, I think she was considering that she didn't want the fact that she's a famous singer or like pop singer in her own right impact the creative decisions that the director and writers and musicians were making behind the scenes. So
yeah, I've seen cast members and the director say that Ariana Grande was the biggest proponent? Is that right?
Yeah.
Proponent of keeping things as kind of close as possible to the stage production so that it kept the heart of the musical, which I'm glad she did.
Yeah, and I think we said, or at least this was a comment I made, so I'll take full credit for it, leaving the theatre, that out of a lot of musical stage productions to film adaptations that we've seen, I do really feel like this captured like the vibe and spirit of the stage production. I still would obviously recommend everyone to see the stage production if you could, but for people, unfortunately, theatre isn't super accessible depending on your, economic situation or circumstances, or maybe just where you live. So
it can be in London. Yeah. As we
but you have to be in London. Get into London hard.
Well, that's true. Not for us.
Have I shown you that compilation of people on, I think it's like Coronation Street, which is a British soap opera set in Manchester? Whenever like a character says that they have to go to London or they're moving to London or whatever, there's always like a dramatic pause, and then the person's like, London! As if it's like this far and distant land. Or
is Joey referencing that on Friends?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Okay. That's what I think
reference.
of for the like in London type thing. Okay, well, anyway, for Ariana Grande, I think going into it, I was nervous because she's got quite a poppy voice when she sings her music, and I'm not a huge fan of her tone and her creative decisions for her own music. But I also know that she's quite good at impersonating other people and that she has a background in musical theater, and I feel like she's a bit of a musical theater nerd at heart. So I also was hopeful. So I was nervous but hopeful, and I think that she exceeded my expectations, and I thought she was a really good Glinda, and she was funny, and she was sometimes kind of not like imitating, but I think she definitely drew a lot of inspiration from Kristen Chenoweth. Chenoweth. But I don't think she was like an exact carbon copy of her. I think she also brought her own little flair to it. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, I think she actually kind of I don't want to say like stole the show. She definitely has like most of the comedic stuff like goes through her, and I feel like almost all of it like really worked, which I was quite surprised at, just because I don't have that much of an experience or knowledge of her as like a comedic actor. I mean, she did a lot of the dramatic stuff well as well, but a lot of the comedic stuff I thought was pretty well done, which, you know, I'm not surprised thinking that she couldn't pull it off, just that she did really pull it off, which is, you know, fair play to her. So you make a good point in that she is good at impersonating people. Yeah,
I mean, I've seen her on a lot of talk shows doing a little spin the wheel, and then she'll impersonate other singers, and she does like quite a good job of it.
They did change the popular ending, right? And I think I saw that she had initially kind of shot that down and had said, like, I hope you're not suggesting this to make this change just because I'm Ariana Grande. And apparently Stephen Schwartz had said to her that he had this idea.
Who is the composer of the music for Wicked.
Yeah, and famous, I guess, Broadway or whatever, musical composer just generally. He also did the music for Dear Evan Hansen, right? I think that's correct.
Don't know.
Yeah, so he'd gone sort of suggesting this change, and apparently he had said that he'd had this idea for a while and wished he'd kind of had it at the time when he was writing Wicked, because then it would have been in the stage show. So maybe the stage show might actually change to incorporate that now at some point. I don't know if that becomes the kind of definitive version of popular.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't actually even remember, like, I remember there being an additional little bit after Elfie leaves, but I don't really remember what happens in it.
Yeah, I think she maybe does like another key change.
Oh, yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So going through the cast, you also have Michelle Yeoh as Madame Horrible.
Morrible.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is quite a hint as to perhaps her character.
Being.
How her character becomes, at least. But in the end of this one, we know that she's not
an
so
evil
nice.
witch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought she was good. I don't really know. I mean, obviously she's kind of had a late career resurgence following winning the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think I saw there was like a cast recording or a video from behind the scenes that she had, I guess the Oscars where she'd won had taken place while she was filming, so she like kind of came back and they like all congratulated her on set for winning, which I thought that was sweet.
Oh, that is sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like her as an actor. I think her singing wasn't great, but I think often when I see it, the people playing Madame Morrible are often like kind of old Broadway stars whose voices are kind of being a little bit lost.
Yeah.
So I think it was okay to have someone who wasn't the best singer in that role because her songs aren't that important or long.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't really have to sing that often.
No.
I thought she was good.
Yeah, her acting was very good.
Yeah, and we'll see more of her in Wicked Part 2, I think.
Probably.
I don't actually really remember what happens to her one way or the other.
Exactly. What happens in the second part?
We also have Jonathan Bailey as Sarah's new favorite. Sarah was actually initially disappointed with this casting, having seen him in Bridgerton, because she thought he wasn't a good actor.
No, you're projecting. You thought he wasn't a good actor. Well, I didn't love him when I first saw him in Bridgerton. But then by the end of the season, I liked him a little bit more. And I know he's won an Olivier for, I can't remember the name of the show, but it's a show with Not Getting Married Today in it. They did like a gender swap thing. And then I've seen clips of him singing that song, and it is very impressive. I think I've showed them to you. So after seeing some of the previews of him as Fiyero, I started to get my hopes up. And now I have fully fallen on the Jonathan Bailey bandwagon.
Choo choo.
Choo choo chaboo.
Yeah, I thought he was very good. He was very charismatic, and yeah, managed to kind of. I feel like it's a kind of difficult role to play in some sense because you have to kind of nail the charisma, like airheadedness.
Yeah.
Fiero's character, there is like something deeper going on with him, where he does have a kind of sense of right and wrong, and that is what draws him to Elphaba. So I think it's a difficult mix to kind of portray that. Yeah.
I've never seen someone play him so well because I've never actually looked at Fiyero singing about being an idiot and been like, oh, that's hot. But when Jonathan Bailey was doing it, sorry, babe, but I was like, oh, yeah, you got me. Let's stop thinking about school and just fuck off.
Oh, my God. Well, unfortunately, he wouldn't be interested in you, Sarah.
Well, you've got a shot, though.
Yeah, but I'm not so interested.
Oh, well, yeah, I thought he was very good. Dancing Through Life the choreography and stuff I thought was really well done and looked really, really challenging to shoot with the spinning clock and...
Yeah, so they hired like professional parkour artists to do that stuff, yeah.
And Jonathan Bailey.
He wasn't doing the most complex stuff, to be fair. But...
He went in the clock and stuff.
Yeah, and he was.
And then he did a flip.
So. Did he?
He did a flip. He does 2 flips, I think.
Oh.
Well, maybe just 1.
Could have been a stunt double.
No, because it doesn't cut. I think it is him.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. I just don't remember it.
All right.
Maybe he did do the flip. I did think, Dancing Through Life was, from a visual point of view, there's like cinematography and everything. It was one of the highlights. I have seen some criticism of the movie. I don't know if cinematography would necessarily be the right like word to describe this, but I think people have said that like the colors aren't quite as like poppy as they would like
the Emerald City, and
I'm not sure if like it's like too saturated is the word. Like the bright greens and the bright yellows and stuff don't pop as much as like you would think. I think even compared to the original Wizard of Oz. I don't know if that was a choice to try and make it more grounded in realism. I feel like that would be a strange creative choice for the subject matter, but I thought like generally speaking the direction was like very good, and yeah, Dancing Through Life was definitely, I think, a good example of showing, we can take something from the stage and adapt it to a film and change stuff and kind of make use of the medium, because you wouldn't be able to do that on stage.
Yeah, it felt like that is exactly what they were doing. Actually, though, they could do that on stage, having a spinning clock. How cool would that be?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone would get that good of a view of it. Well, I suppose if it was horizontal, so the audience could see it. Well, I suppose it is horizontal in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to hire a bunch of parkour artists, I suppose.
Well, I mean, you'd hire dancers, which are similar. Like,
just as good, really.
But it wouldn't have to be as complicated, because you don't also have to factor in the like shooting part of it.
True.
The camera. All right. Anyway, we can move on past the clock. A little bit of trivia I wanted to mention with Jonathan Bailey is that he requested that his horse in this movie be the same horse that he worked with on Bridgerton, because he had formed such a strong bond with his horse.
Wow. Now, I think they shot some of it in Australia and some of it in the UK. So did that horse get shipped around the world just for Jonathan Bailey?
That would be so funny. I don't know.
And the horse speaks in this, which I don't think happens in the stage show. Yeah, when it like runs him down. It
Oh yeah, because that makes sense, right? Because the animals can speak.
Yeah.
For now, I don't even know if he has a horse in the stage. I don't think he has a horse in the stage show.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a cool addition.
Just on Dancing Through Life, that is one of the examples because it is one of the longer songs in the stage show as well, but it is real long in the movie. It just never really ends. In fact, I think I'm still waiting for the final chorus right now.
I didn't want it to end.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just.
Because it takes place over a number of scenes and that.
Yeah. Which I think it does as well to some extent in the stage show, but I would be surprised if it's quite as long as of a runtime, because you have one of the real big emotional kind of epicenters of the movie where Glinda and Elphaba kind of reconcile in the middle of that song, which does happen in the stage show as well. But I think
it's much more comedic.
Yeah, and it's way more. They go for way more like of an emotional beat in this, and it actually takes like quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I thought it was actually very well done. Like that was probably the part that I found most emotive, having not ever been in such a similar situation. So thankfully.
Yeah. No, I do think that part was very emotionally touching. I do think maybe the moment lasted a very long time.
Yeah.
So long and it was so slow that I don't know. If you hadn't seen this stage show, I would maybe be quite confused and not understand that this is Elphaba like trying to dance. I would have been like, what is happening?
Yeah, because I didn't really remember how it went in the stage show, but I thought that read fairly clearly, at least for me, that it was like her kind of trying to show like an act of like defiance. That was kind of like her like, putting on a brave face to be like, this is me, this is who I am, and I don't care who you.
This is real.
Oh, copyright strike, bang.
So the moral of the story is that Jonathan Bailey is good.
Yeah, pretty much. I did think he was good. Yeah, and yeah, Dancing Through Life was one of the highlights for me.
Yeah.
I was going to say, just while I'm on this and while I've thought of the point, do you feel sometimes with musicals when you know them really well, there's a kind of sense that it becomes almost like a greatest hits concert or something. You kind of just like waiting for the next song to come on, if that makes sense. This is especially what happened for me with like Defying Gravity, where it's just like I could kind of feel it like building up. But even when we went to see Hamilton, when I like know the songs like pretty well, oh, now it's this one, now it's this one, now it's this one, you know? And it kind of defeats a bit of the, I mean, and it's my own fault for like knowing it that well, but it defeats a bit of the kind of, it takes you out of the kind of surprise of the story a little bit, because you feel like you know it more like beat for beat.
Yeah.
Which is something
I know what you mean. I feel it as well more in just knowing the song so well. Any like minor change is quite grating and confusing for my
and that
brain.
That almost takes you out of it.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's like interesting, because like that's what we've been saying, or I was saying that the changes Cynthia Erivo was doing with her vocal lines sometimes like took me out of it a little bit, but that's not a reflection on her. It's just that I know how it originally sounds, but in my head I'm going, that's how it's meant to sound. So it sounds wrong, but that
it's also like with like there's very little change in stage production from like one stage production to the next of creative choices. It'll be like for a Broadway or West End show, in the traveling cast, in like almost any performance you see of it, it'll be basically the same choreography, the same costumes, the same set. And I think it would maybe be like a bit more interesting if people were allowed to and tried to like change it up a bit. Because if you say like, oh, like this person directed this production of Wicked, I'm like, yeah, but like what they're trying to do is create like a copy of the original with like very minor little changes that the actors can do.
Yeah, I suppose on a stage production though, maybe you wouldn't want to be the person in the audience who's like waited their whole life to see Wicked, and then you see them do like a stripped back version of Defying Gravity that is not what you were.
Well, no one wants that.
No, I know.
Give it more.
But like, where'd you draw
Sparkles
the line?
and fire. Now I want to direct Wicked. Do it right. I did like in No One Mourns the Wicked, speaking of fire, the like giant burning effigy of Elphaba. That was nuts.
Yeah,
I liked that.
I hate those munchkins.
they're really small-minded. Yeah. Like Elphaba says. She says that in The Wizard and I.
Yeah. What did you think of some of the changes where like Elphaba was kind of excommunicated from her family, it seems like almost from birth, and then raised by a bear? I thought that was weird.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was really weird. I thought you would probably like that because it's like a weird animal thing. Yeah. No, really, the talking animals.
It's the core part of the story, Sarah.
I know, and I thought it was like there were supposed to be kind of quite serious parts where he's like the goat is showing her how history used to be and how there used to be like
his name is Dr. Dilliman, Sarah, not
Dr. Dilliman.
You sound just like the wizard.
But how he was like, it used to be snow leopards being a mathematician and like teaching everyone the physics, and it's supposed to be this serious moment, but then it just shows like a snow leopard with some glasses like teaching physics, and it's so funny. I don't know, it's just like kind of a weird, I think it's quite weird to me, because it's like, especially in the book and stuff, it's supposed to be so serious, but then you like look at it and you're like, this is not serious.
Yeah, it is weird in a sense that while the animals can talk, and that seem like speaking as a human would do is the kind of way they're then made to be as like equals to people or to humans, and I suppose not everyone in the Wizard of Oz is a human.
Yeah.
Or are the Munchkins human? Or is that like the town or the race? I don't know.
Maybe they're from Earth.
Possibly. But the animals, even though they're meant to be equals, and that's like the point of the story, and that the people are kind of like stripping their rights away or whatever, they're still conforming to like a humanistic point of like equivalence.
Yeah.
Whereas the Dr. Dilliman teaches in a classroom, but he still uses like a blackboard and stuff, and it's kind of unclear how he would like use it and everything without
thumbs.
Yeah, exactly.
You unevolved goat.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know what else. Like,
yeah, well, it showed that
reality,
it's nice that they have like accommodations for like his chalkboard. Like he has a little pedal that he pushes to turn on the projector or something, and it's like fitted for a goat. But I don't know, does he use his teeth for the chalk?
I think he would have to.
Or you could put. Here's what you could do. You could get a little like addition that you can stick onto his hoof. That's just like chalk, and then he can draw with his hoof.
Yeah, but I don't know how high a goat can like lift their leg to be able to do that. Like,
well, this is Oz.
That's true. Which way does a goat's front leg extend? Is it back or forward or both?
Well, it bends at the knee like that, like a knee.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I can't lift it up.
Well, yeah, you can, but you're not a goat.
Are you sure?
I think I'm making sense here.
Okay. Should we move on from the goat?
Stop being Sarah. It's Dr. Dillerman.
Oh, wait, but we did have a bit of a kind of plot hole regarding the animals, just while we're talking about the animals.
Oh, yeah. So the whole thing is that, like, the animals are being blamed for things. They're, like, kind of being othered by the wizards as a way for him to consolidate power. I think that's where the sort of political satire and everything comes in from the original text. But the animals are, in fact, losing their power of speech, and it's unclear as to how that is happening. Because the wizard doesn't actually have any magical power, it seems. Although he is able to create some pretty impressive machines and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So how were the animals born with the power to speak? Was the power given to them by some kind of wizard? But the wizard doesn't have powers, so then who gave them the powers and who is able to take the power of speech away from them?
Madame Morrible is able to do magic, which we see when she does she like controls the weather a little bit. But it's not, and I think she says like weather is like my specialty or something.
Yeah.
But it's not clear if she's the one who's managed to do this, some sort of spell, or if it's some sort of scientific concoction they've put in the water supply to like take away the animal's speaking ability.
Well, she's the only actual witch besides Elphaba that we see, like the only person with powers.
Yeah, but kind of unclear as to how strong she actually is. Like she is unable to read the book, apparently. At least that's what she claims. That's how they hype up Elphaba into doing it.
Right. Well, and I presume she creates the tornado that brings Dorothy.
Oh, right.
To
Yeah.
Oz.
Maybe that's what we'll see in part 2.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I was so sure that that's how this one was going to end in Defying Gravity. I thought there was going to be a...
For all of you out there who don't know, Sarah is very afraid of tornadoes.
Yeah.
And rightly so, because they are scary.
That's not how I wanted it to end. So throughout Defying Gravity, I was like very scared the whole time. But okay, anyway, Jonathan Bailey, we got through. Who's next?
Well, some of the other characters, there's Ethan Slater as Bok. He's the little ginger munchkin boy who...
The homewrecker? Oh wait, or is Ariana Grande the homewrecker?
I think they're kind of both homewreckers to an extent, but we don't need to dwell on their personal lives. You can look into TMZ if you want to know about that. So he plays Bok, who is almost immediately infatuated with Galinda, later Glinda. And then his significance to the story is that he, through a favor to Glinda, basically asks Elphaba's sister Nessa Rose to go to a dance together, and then she becomes like infatuated with him. And then he kind of bottles the opportunity to tell her that while he likes her as a friend, he sort of goes to the extreme and tells her that he thinks she's like amazing. And then, because I think Nessa Rose at that point is actually suspicious of his motives. Not in that she thinks he's trying to like mock her, but she doesn't think she's actually
she thinks he just feels sorry for her.
Yeah, which seems like the perfect opportunity to get out of that, I guess. But he
what do you mean?
Well, just being like, no, it's not because I feel sorry for you. Well, actually, maybe not.
Well, that is what he says.
True. Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah.
I'm finding it really hard not to break into the song right now.
Yeah, so he's kind of out doing that, and then we have Nessa Rose's character.
Yeah,
I can't remember who plays her.
It's Marissa Bode.
Okay, yeah. And she is Elphaba's sister, and they changed the story a little bit. So originally in the Wicked stage show, I think both of them are meant to be going to Shiz.
Yeah,
Nessa's going to Shiz,
so.
And then she receives a letter from Shiz or whatever that they're like, oh, we want you to enroll so we can teach you magic or whatever. Whereas in the movie, Nessa's meant to be going to Shiz and Elphaba's just there to help her with her settling in or whatever. And then there's an instance where Elphaba performs magic kind of by accident, and Madame Morrible sees that and takes her under her wing because of that. So she's not originally meant to be going to the school.
Mm-hmm. So I thought that Marissa Bode was good as Nessa Rose. A lot of people didn't like her, but it's not super clear if they didn't like her or they just didn't like her character. I think sometimes people were kind of conflating the two together, but the sad part of it is that Marissa Bode, who does have a disability and does have a wheelchair, just like her character, had to make a statement basically saying, don't make fun of people with disabilities, like jokes about people in wheelchairs aren't funny, because I guess she was getting a lot of comments like that on social media, which is gross. So stop doing that, people.
Yeah. Just goes to show it's not just, nerds and Star Wars fans and stuff that can show behavior like that, but also musical theater people.
Well, you really think it's the musical theater people making those comments? Or do you think it's because musical theater has been pushed into the broader
It is probably more likely
eye?
that, but there can be bad apples in any bunch.
Well, I suppose. So the only other character... Oh, no, we haven't talked about Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, my favorite.
Euan's favorite. My least favorite. I thought he portrayed the wizard really well. I liked his take on the wizard. I didn't appreciate his vocals very much, but besides that, he was good.
But I don't think his singing is great either, but the wizard has only one song in this movie, and he has 2 songs in the show overall. I think both of them are seen as lowlights, even in the original stage production. So it's not like...
I thought you liked them.
Well, they're all right. I mean, I don't hate them. A lot of people, if they were listening to the Wicked soundtrack, would see them as like a skip. So you could cast an amazing singer in the role, and unless they kind of fundamentally change the performance of the song, I don't think anyone would be like, oh man, I love that song performed by this amazing singer. So I think he was definitely just more cast for the straight acting he could bring.
The vibes.
Yeah. And I thought he was like perfectly cast in that role as like a kind of like kooky wizard with a bit of a more sinister undertone. I just think he's like a great actor. So
no, and I think I think he was quite different than the other wizards that I've seen, but I think he brought more character to him, but in a kind of like goofy dad-like way, but then that contrasted with his kind of evil.
Yeah. Well, I think he just has like a great presence, and because he's quite tall, like he's still got quite like imposing figure, even though he's kind of like kooky, but I think even him just as not an actor portraying someone, but he's just an interesting guy. I'd be very upset if any allegations came out against him, to be honest, because it would, like, even behind the scenes, or you see like the cast interviews and stuff, he seems to, bring a lot of like energy out of people, whoever he's paired up with, and people seem to just really vibe with him. So.
Yeah, well, I've mostly just seen him paired with Jonathan Bailey. And the 2 of them are actually quite cute together, and they're really funny, and they have a good charisma together.
And they don't even have any scenes together.
Good energy, yeah.
Who knows if they even met before the
yeah, it's funny. I don't really know why they were paired up together. I guess it was just they're the other main characters, other than Ariana and Cynthia, whose press tour looks very different than Jonathan. Come on. I don't think... Well, no.
I think they're just really embodying... I don't want to say the worst parts of musical theatre fandom, but just like the full spectrum where people get like very emotional about things, and it's... obviously like the holding space thing, which is just like ridiculous on a lot of levels.
Yeah, well, I have 2 things to say about that. One, I've now seen an interview with Ariana Grande afterwards, and... being asked about that, and she basically said, I didn't understand what the person was like trying to say, but she noticed that Cynthia clearly had quite a like emotional reaction to it, so she was like, I didn't know how to be there, but I was trying to be there, which is fine. But I just thought it was funny that she just had no idea what was going on, just like the rest of us, to be honest. But I've also seen the interviewer talking about it. I think it was missing the context of it being about the LGBTQ community, and they're holding space with Defying Gravity, like, because they really resonate with it, and about coming to terms with and accepting who you are and how that makes you stronger rather than it being a problem with you, which is what Alphaba does in that song. Like, I think it just resonates with that community, which is what she was trying to say, which is like powerful and nice.
Yeah, well, I'm really in support of all that. You can't just make up slang though and then be...
Holding space, that is a thing.
Well, I've never ever heard that.
It's just, it's a very cheesy or kind of dramatic way of saying that.
Well, maybe I misunderstood why it had gone so viral, because I thought it was like because the interviewer had basically just like made up a term, and then both of them react as if that's like something that is like something that people just say. But,
I think I've heard that before.
Okay. Well, I've never heard anyone
I just
say
thought
that.
it was because it was just so like dramatic.
Yeah.
And all of their press tour has just been them like crying, which is...
and that's kind of what I was meaning with the kind of the full package of the musical theatre experience.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure through your experience doing musical theatre...
the last night of a show, it's just tears.
Yeah. And they're always like holding onto each other's hands and everything, and it's...
Yeah, like...
Which on one hand is like kind of cute, and it's like nice that they have like clearly a friendship.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it's a bit
much.
Just talking to people, guys. It's not like you're actually doing anything that requires actual...
Yeah. Have you seen when Ariana Grande just holds her finger?
Yeah.
So stupid. Or I also wonder if they were asked or told by like publicity to kind of play up that to make them more memeable, because they have been very memed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, yeah, definitely memes are a publicity stunt to some extent, and even semi-negative press can, you know, be a good thing in terms of generating hype for things.
Yeah. Moving on, the last person who I just briefly wanted to talk about was Bowen Yang, who plays one of Ariana Grande's or one of Glinda's bitchy friends, who is an actor on SNL. And apparently Ariana Grande specifically asked for him to be cast in the movie, and SNL said, no, we don't allow people who are in the season to be in any movies. Like, that's a strict rule that they have. So he basically told her that he couldn't, and then Ariana Grande called, you know, the head people at SNL and like basically begged them to let him be in Wicked, and then they finally agreed, which meant that then he had to be like flying back and forth, because SNL is like a full-time job, like they work every day, so he had to be like flying back and forth between countries, and it must have been like really exhausting. But I think he's really good in it. I mean, I think he's quite funny. So
I just saw an article, I think Pete Davidson had come out and said that SNL actors get paid like $3,000 an episode.
Yeah, I saw that as well, but I'm wondering if, because he was saying like right when he started out, if it like increases as you...
Yeah, I mean, you'd be as familiar, if not more so, probably more so than I am, but I wasn't sure if he was like a full-time cast member of SNL or he does like a podcast thing or something. I don't really know. I've definitely seen him in SNL sketches, but I wasn't sure if he was like a full-time member of the cast. I don't really know, to be honest. But
yeah, I think it depends on the season. I don't think he's in... Is he in this one?
No idea.
Because it just depends who's like in the credits, in the opening credits. If they're in that, then they're usually the like returning cast members.
Yeah.
But then sometimes they come back and guest star, which is always fun. So that's the cast of Wicked. I think overall it was extremely well cast. So thumbs up from me. Yeah,
I mean, they didn't do the cardinal sin of movie musicals where they cast people who can't sing in the lead roles generally.
Yes.
So.
Exactly. Which moves us smoothly into talking about the music. Now, unfortunately, you are going to have to wait to hear about the music production process of Wicked, because much like the creators of Wicked, we have started this recording and quickly realized that we are holding too much space for Wicked. So we are splitting the episode into 2 parts. Unfortunately, this means we are ending the episode here as Wicked Part 1, Part 1. But stay tuned on our Instagram for a Christmas-themed episode announcement, and of course, join us for Part 2 of the Wicked discussion after the holidays, otherwise known as Wicked Part 1, Part 2. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to have your daily bowl of popcorn.